Hey, what's up? This is Buddy, and I just got back from a pre-screening of the new Evil Dead movie. Evil Dead is one of my favorite horror franchises, so I had to go into the remake with as blank of a mind as possible. I know that right off the bat, some Evil Dead fans are gonna hate this movie just simply because it exists. But I think if you have an open mind about it, you may find some things that you like. For me, this is a really hard movie to review. It would be easy if I could tell you that I really loved it or that I really hated it, but overall I just thought it was kind of okay. It has some strong parts that made it enjoyable, but it also had some parts where I wanted to chop off my own hand. Let's start with what I liked. First off, I liked the overall tone of the movie. It went for a serious tone, which contrasts greatly with the feel of the other films. I personally feel that if you're going to make a remake of something, make it different. Although it did take itself seriously, it still had some pretty good comedic moments, and I think they handled it pretty nicely. I also like how it paid tribute to the other films, but put a new spin on some of the ideas. Some classic scenes from the original are in this one, but they still feel somewhat fresh. They changed things up to keep it interesting. It also had a slight tribute to some other horror classics, which I thought was kind of cool. I think the strongest part about this movie is the fact that some things are different, but it still feels like an Evil Dead movie. The plot's similar, and the way it's told is familiar to us fans. Now let's talk about what I didn't like. Oh boy. Alright, let's be honest. What made the original Evil Dead so great? One word. Ash. Let's be real, no one could ever be as memorable as Bruce Campbell. And to be fair, the actors in this film do a decent job, but they just aren't memorable. I literally just saw the film and I can't even remember any of their names. Another problem I have with the characters are the decisions they make. For the most part, they seem smart enough, but eventually they do make all the stupid choices like all horror characters do. Except Ash, of course. At one point towards the end, I was legitimately pissed off with a choice one of the main characters made. I seriously smacked myself in the face. And that's another thing I don't like about this movie. The ending. In the older Evil Dead movies, the endings were a big spectacle of special effects and a full-on fight with the undead. This one didn't really have that. I would have liked to see a much better ending than what we got. To me, it just really felt cheap, and I think they could have come up with something much better for the climax. I also would have liked this movie to be a lot scarier than it was. I know that I'm pretty desensitized to most horror films, but I was honestly expecting this one to have me jump a few times. I think that I was more scared of the last Paranormal Activity than I was of this one, to be honest. The posters all say that this is the most terrifying movie you'll ever experience, and that couldn't be further from the truth. In all honesty, I think that the older ones might even be scarier than this one, and that's really saying something. I really only remember jumping once, and it was at a cheap jump scare with just like a staple gun or something. It wasn't even anything scary. Overall though, I'm glad that I saw it. If you're an Evil Dead fan, I say at least go give it a watch and see what you think. Just don't go expecting something as good as one of the originals. If anything, it's a lot better than most horror remakes I've seen, and as its own film, it's not that awful. I think that the best thing this movie has going for it is that it will hopefully bring attention to the older films, and a new generation of audience can be introduced to them. Well, that's just my general thoughts about it. I hope you found what I had to say informative, and if you like Evil Dead, I say give this one a shot. You may not like it, but I think it's at least worth a watch.